Hi, my name is Mike Tusaw. I'm a financial advisor from St. Charles Wealth Management. Today we're going to discuss the Greeks. Now, as we get into this, I want you to have an understanding of what the Greeks actually are. The Greeks are actually a gauge with which options are measured. So, just like on a car, you have your gas gauge, you have your temperature gauge, you have your oil gauge, whatever the case may be, the Greeks kind of work in the same way for options. Different Greeks will give you different results on what you're looking to do. The important thing is that you have a basic understanding of them so that you can choose which option or which option spread would work the best for you. The first Greek that we're going to talk about is delta. Delta is the one that most people start with and a lot of people just end with, quite frankly, when trading options. I think that's a mistake. I think you need to have an understanding of all the Greeks, but delta is definitely a very important one. Now, the thing that I want to mention before we get into delta is that all of these Greeks, delta included, that I'm going to be talking about, are assuming everything else and all other factors of option trading remain constant. So what I mean by that is that the definition of delta means that it is the expected move of an option given a 1 point move in the underlying. So for example, let's say that you have a 50 delta option and the underlying stock moves $1, then that would mean the option would move 50 cents, assuming that all other option trading factors remain constant, which they never do. But this is how it is actually measured. So that's how you can have an understanding of how delta works. The higher the delta of the option, the more powerful the option is, for better or for worse. If it's a 95 delta option, then that means you're going to have roughly 95% of the movement of the underlying within the option itself. So if the option moves $1, if the stock moves $1, that means the option's going to move 95 cents, for better or for worse. So delta is the first of the 5 Greeks, and that is based upon the movement of the underlying. The next Greek we're going to discuss is a little bit more tricky. It is gamma. Gamma, by definition, assuming that all other option pricing factors remain constant, is the rate with which the delta of the option will change given a $1 or 1 point move in the underlying. Now, how on earth would this work? Well, this is how I like to think of it. Of the factors of option pricing that exist, gamma is the one based upon the strike price. Now, strike prices can change. Now, of course, I'm not trying to say like if you have a 50 strike option, it's going to be the 50 strike option from the time you buy it till the time that you sell the option until it expires, worthless or in the money. But what I am saying, and how option strike prices can actually change, it can be based upon an option going in, at, or out of the money. For example, if you buy a stock if you buy an option, a 50 call on a stock that's trading at 50, you're buying an at the money option. If that stock goes up in value, you now have an in the money option. If the stock goes down in value, you now have an out of the money option. And gamma is how that is measured. So let's say that the stock goes higher, your at the money option is going to go in the money. The higher it goes, the more deltas that you're going to have with that option because it goes further and further in the money. And if the stock goes down in value, the option becomes out of the money, and you're going to have less and less and less deltas as the price of the stock goes lower in value. How that is measured is based upon gamma. So once again, an at the money option will have usually a 50% correlation to the underlying. An out of the money option will have less correlation to the underlying the further out of the money it is. And an in the money option will have more correlation to the movement of the underlying the further in the money it is. And hopefully that helps you to understand the concept of gamma. Next, we have theta. Theta is the Greek that measures time decay. So let's say that all other option trading factors remain constant. There's no movement in the underlying, volatility stays the same, interest rates stay the same, Uh, there's no dividend announced or anything. What theta means is that between today and tomorrow, this is how much extrinsic value the option is going to lose. Now, it's not measuring in the money value because in the money value is immune to time decay. What it measures is how much out of the money or extrinsic value the option is going to lose between today and tomorrow. Once again, as a reminder, these are all under the assumption that all other option trading factors remain constant. Next, we have Vega. Vega, by definition, is a measurement of how much the value of an option will change given a 1% percentage point change in the underlying stock's implied volatility. Vega is based on implied volatility, which oftentimes scares some people when it comes to options, but it doesn't have to be that way. Have an understanding that when you trade an option, volatility can be a factor. If the implied volatility goes higher, then that means, assuming all other factors are constant, that the value of the option will go higher. And if implied volatility goes lower, assuming all other factors remain constant, then the value of the option will go lower. Now, if you're concerned with never wanting implied volatility to have any effect on your trading decisions or what you do, if you hold the option until expiration, then implied volatility will have no issue at expiration because of all the extrinsic value being gone. Vega, or implied volatility, whatever way you want to think about it, is based upon the extrinsic value of the option. Just like with time value, intrinsic value of the option is immune to Vega. And finally, there's Rho. Rho is the rate with which an option's price will change given the U.S. government treasury bill changing 1 percentage point in interest rates. Calls have a direct correlation to interest rates. So what that means is if interest rates go higher, assuming all other factors remain constant, the value of calls would go higher. Puts have an inverse correlation, meaning that if interest rates go higher, assuming all other factors remain constant, values of puts will become lower. Now, why is that? Well, here's a way with which to think about it. Let's say that I want to buy a stock. Well, if I want to buy a stock, of course, I'm going to participate in the upside of it. But instead, I want to buy a call. And instead of using all that money to buy a stock, I'm going to take some of that money and put into a U.S. government treasury and earn interest on it. Well, let's say that the value of those treasuries, or I should say the interest rate in the treasuries, becomes greater. Well, then because of that, the value of the call becomes greater because you're going to be able to collect more of an interest rate with the treasuries. Thus, you're going to have to pay more for that call option. Now, the opposite would be true with puts in case you were looking to compare shorting a stock to doing the same concept of what we discussed with calls. Interest rates aren't a huge factor right now, even though they have come up in the last few months. But nonetheless, they are still a factor, and you need to be aware of them. If you enjoyed today's video, please subscribe. This is how we can get our content out to more listeners and viewers. If you're looking for a financial advisor that uses the option product and has a deep understanding of how option Greeks work, feel free to reach out to me. My website is stcharleswealth.com, or you can also follow me on Twitter @MikeTusaw. Thank you and have a wonderful day.